You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So I can get out of this.
All right, now we're like weirdly a couple seconds behind.
It's okay. I wonder if anyone would actually be on this. So is it Chris Jones's personal meeting room?
That's the Zoom name, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
So are you seeing the video like a second behind?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you think we do this?
What? I'm posting stuff on Twitter and Facebook. Football game. The football game. Are you watching the football game?
It was. So how do you think we do this so that it's not like just lagging like 20 seconds behind?
I think it's just the way it is. I think it's always like that far behind.
Well, I get it. Can we mute it though or something so that it doesn't like distract us while we're talking?
You don't have to have it open.
Oh, if we close it, are we good?
Yeah, I think it just live streams. Like it's still
Oh, okay.
live
Now I
streaming.
think we're good. All right, I muted mine.
What happened now? Oh wow.
I'm weirdly cheering for the Cowboys because
Oh well, you need the Raiders to lose.
I need the
yeah.
Raiders to lose. I don't care though. I hate them both, but
Well, the Raiders just got a first down on their field goal try because the Cowboys jumped. All right. So we're live. Do you want to wait a few minutes?
let's go live in 2 minutes or
Okay.
4 minutes or something.
And if nobody comes on, nobody comes on.
We're still recording, right? Should we record the?
Yeah, we'll record once we start.
I
We'll
gave you
record.
permission to record.
Yeah. Oh. I forgot to.
I just recorded, so.
It's good. Dallas losing. Yes.
All right. Best Thanksgiving. The division is still in play. All right, I forgot to post it on Hall of Songs. I posted it on my Facebook because I'm an idiot. There we go. Did you have a fun day? Good day?
Lots of cooking.
That's good.
Yeah, I cooked the turkey and the stuffing and gravy. Everything was good though.
I didn't know you
Watch
were.
the Lions lose.
I didn't know you were the cook.
Oh,
in
I'm the
house.
cook. Yeah. Yeah, I cooked about an 18-pound turkey.
Nice.
We had 14 people at Meg's mom's house, so it was a good time.
Nice. My mom is back there in the shot.
You can see her.
There she is.
Is that a slow cooker there behind you?
Yeah, it's just a crock pot, basically. I think she kept the turkey in that actually. So.
Nice.
You put the turkey in the crock pot, right? And in the slow
It's
cooker.
a turkey roaster.
It's a turkey roaster.
Oh, it's a
okay.
turkey roast. Okay.
Let's be technically
I used to
correct.
have one of those.
All right. Well, we can get going, and if you know, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay.
Are you recording too?
Yes, I'm recording.
Okay.
Too. Should probably. There we go.
And we're live.
What's that?
And we're live. I've got this big thing up in the middle of the screen that says live.
Live. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
Great. Happy Thanksgiving. How is
Happy
your Thanksgiving?
I'm full.
How's it going? Yeah, you're full?
I'm full.
What did you eat today?
Lots of stuff. Turkey, stuffing, rutabaga, Brussels sprouts, chocolate cake, pie, lots of things. It was good.
Rutabaga being number 3 on the list was a
Yeah, my mom makes
surprise. I was
rutabaga.
not.
It's really good.
We had turkey stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes. We had cranberry. We had green bean casserole, which is my favorite. We had carrots, the whole shebang. So tons of pies as well. I think I'm going to have some pumpkin pie pretty soon. So
Yeah, that's
that'll
always
be fun.
good.
Yeah. Thanksgiving. So we are live on YouTube right now on our Hall of Songs YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and say Hall of Songs, you could find us there. Why would I be telling people this? Because you'd be listening, you'd be watching right now if you were actually. Anyways, the point is we're live. Big deal for us. First ever live podcast here on Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving evening, which is also the 45th anniversary of a very special Thanksgiving event. What is that event, Chris?
This was the band's farewell concert, which was recorded by Martin Scorsese and turned into the movie The Last Waltz 45 years ago today at Winterland Ballroom.
What a really, really big event and a star-studded concert that we both love. And for me, it's Thanksgiving tradition. We'll, I'm sure, talk about that as we get into it all. We're going to take this next hour, I guess, whatever it is we're going to do here, and talk about The Last Waltz. We're going to talk about the movie and our impressions of it, our thoughts of it, and how we feel about the band and the music and all that stuff. Good chance to do that as we're now in the 1970s and Hall of Songs. We'll talk about all of that. We'll get into all of that. But first, why don't we get to the theme song? Let's do it. Welcome, music lovers and loyal listeners, to Hall of Songs. My Uncle Paul is
Paul
in the other
McCartney.
room.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
right.
thought you was a McCartney tribute for Get Back coming out. Is that today or tomorrow?
Get
I
Back is out
think it's
today.
already today, right? Yeah.
The first of the 3 episodes of Get Back, or whatever to call it, are out today on Disney Plus. So there you go. No, this is the podcast in which 2 men attempt to determine the greatest songs of all time. I am Tim Malcolm.
I am Chris Jones.
And it's Thanksgiving night here in America. We are both in Philadelphia, but in separate places. We're 10 miles away from one another, but in separate places on Zoom. There it is. So we are live streaming our podcast talking about The Last Waltz, the concert event by the band that took place on Thanksgiving night, 1976 at the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco, California. Chris, how excited are you for that? How is you and how excited are you for a Thanksgiving live pod?
I love Thanksgiving. It's probably my favorite holiday. So thrilled to talk about this. I've always loved this movie and sort of the whole fiasco that is associated with it. So should be a lot of fun. And it fits right in with what we're talking about and all that stuff. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, of course. We are in the 1970s and Hall of Songs. Our podcast, for those of you who don't quite know what we do, we are a podcast that goes year by year through time in attempt to determine the greatest songs of all time by nominating songs for a Hall of Songs or a Hall of Fame for songs. We do each episode on a year. So we just did 1971. That was our last episode. We'll be doing 1972 next week, which will be December 3rd, I believe, or December 5th, one of those days. December 5th. That's when the next episode comes out.
Yes.
And after each episode, we will nominate 12 songs that we say are the best of the year. And after each episode, you, the listener, can go to our website at hallofsongs.com and vote for the songs that you think should be in the Hall of Songs ultimately. And we have a whole rating system or a whole percentage ratio kind of thing to determine what songs get into the hall through your votes. And it's kind of like the Baseball Hall of Fame. So if you know anything about the Baseball Hall of Fame and how that works, that's how we do our Hall of Songs. And right now we have 39 songs in the Hall of Songs. The most recent being what? "Give Me Shelter" by the Stones, and the other one was what?
No, you're a year off. That was the year before. We got "My Girl," right?
Oh, that's right. That's right. "My Girl."
"My Girl." We have "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay."
Yep.
And we have "Let It Be."
Let It Be. Yep. So 3 songs from our last episode, our last voting election. We had 3 songs get in. And our next episode's on 1971. So we'll present up to 12 or 72. In that 72 episode, we will present up to 12 songs from 72 that we think are worthy of the Hall of Songs. We'll talk about them. And then we will ask you to vote on the ballot that'll have 72 songs in it, 71, 70, 69, whatever else is still on the ballot. And then at the end of that whole period, we will let you know what songs got into the hall. And so that's how we do it here at Hall of Songs. This is a bonus episode. We like to do a bonus episode every once in a while. And this is on the Last Waltz. And yeah, 1976. So we are in the 70s. The band is still riding high in the 70s. And this is the end of the band's life. This is, at least for the classic lineup, this is the last concert. I guess we can get into it. Why not? I mean, yeah, we're here now, right? I guess the first question before we get into the actual movie and talking about it is, what is your history with the band and this movie, this concert? When did you kind of become a band fan and really were aware of the group?
I mean, I've been a fan of the show, I guess, for 20 plus years. But what's interesting, like, I hadn't seen the movie until a little bit more recently than that, probably within the last like 15 years. But I had the album forever. So I knew all the songs and I knew the sort of the performances and all that. And it's interesting to watch the movie and then to read about it, because it's not quite one and the same, right? It's like there's a couple soundstage performances that are thrown into the movie. Things are a little bit out of order. And it's not exactly the same like as just listening to the album. I mean, I know XPN played the album straight through today, and it's not exactly the same. The Scorsese takes a lot of liberties in the movie, for better and for worse, I think.
Yeah, he definitely takes a lot of liberties in the movie. We'll get into all that. I'll get into my history with the band. I talked about it a bit in the 68 episode when we nominated The Wait for Hall of Songs inclusion, and it did get in. It was inducted as one of the 39 songs. So it is a Hall of Songs inductee. But I lived in New York, Hudson Valley of New York, for a number of years, covered the entertainment and music community in that area for a number of years, including Woodstock, New York, which was where Lee Von Helm lived up until his death. The band first got to Woodstock in the mid to late 60s when they were hanging out with Bob Dylan. And Woodstock is a great little village of arts and music and creativity. And I fell in love with Woodstock, covering it, but also being a part of that community. And the music of the band really fits next to it really well. And so as I was becoming more and more part of that world, the band became really a soundtrack for that life for me. And so I got really deep into the band during my college years, especially, but also when I was working out there in Woodstock in my 20s. And at some point I was able to get to a Lee Von Helm Midnight Ramble, and he'll talk about that in the movie where he mentions the Midnight Rambles that happened where he's from in Arkansas. And he was able to bring that whole vibe into the Woodstock area and do his own regular shows at his barn studio in Woodstock. And so I got to go to one of those, I think around 2010, 2009. It was right before he died. So it was like 2009 probably. And I was literally feet away from Lee Von Helm and got to see him play drums. And I had a camera because I was doing video for the newspaper I was working at. And I got to just videotape Lee Von Helm playing drums, like right there. It was really awesome. It was like I was almost in a way Scorsese, in my own mind, like kind of doing that whole thing. So, I mean, that was always a part of who I was in my 20s. Met my wife. Hudson Valley was a part of our lives. The band was a part of our lives, and that music really lived on in my life. And so this movie has always been really close to me, especially the last 15 years. every Thanksgiving I watch it. It is sort of tradition for me. I listened to the whole soundtrack at some point, and as you said, XPN, the radio station in Philadelphia that I grew up with, that you listen to a lot now, Chris, and we love XPN. We love the DJs of that radio station. They did the Last Waltz all the way through today, and so I listened to that for a bit. It's just a great part of Thanksgiving, and it's a great part of the tradition that we have here, you know, to have music aligned with a holiday that is about family and togetherness and feeling like you're a part of something. And I think that's what this concert, as crazy as it is, and as really controversial as it can be sometimes, it is about togetherness. It's about a group of people being together, at least for the last time, as a group, as a unit.
Yeah, Stephen Hayden has a good column, I think from either last year or the year before, about how it's sort of the ultimate Thanksgiving movie because everybody kind of like sets their differences aside to sort of, you know, have their family dinner and all that, which is, you know, it's very appropriate for Thanksgiving. And it was on, you know, it did take place on Thanksgiving itself, but it's sort of, it's humorous in a way. I mean, there's a lot of sort of goofy things about it to me. But that doesn't make it any less delightful to watch. And like you said, I watch it almost every Thanksgiving or around there, and I always listen to the album, and even not around Thanksgiving for the music, but usually the movie itself is something that I come back to Thanksgiving time.
Is there a time during Thanksgiving when you, like, where in the holiday period do you actually try to watch or listen to the Last Waltz?
Mine's usually in the days leading up to Thanksgiving. It's kind of like that. I like, you know, the music will be on in the background, but hopefully like the weekend before or sometime, if I have the time, I'll try to watch the movie. Even if it's not straight through, sometimes I'll jump around or watch pieces here and pieces there.
Do you have like a rotation of movies or TV shows that are Thanksgiving themed that you like to follow along with during?
I don't know. Thanksgiving's a little harder. I do try to watch the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
Sure.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is my favorite Thanksgiving movie, but I don't watch that like every year. That's every few years.
I feel like you are a big Planes, Trains, and Automobiles guy. Just knowing feels like, there's The West Wing. There are a couple episodes of The West Wing that I love that are Thanksgiving themed. One being the Butterball Hotline episode, which is really fun. And then what's the other thing that I liked? Oh, Alice's Restaurant.
Oh yeah, they played on XPN. They played that on XPN at noon. That's always a big thing. I also like the WKRP in Cincinnati episode with the turkey drop, and then there's the great
the humanity
episode with the food fight.
Yes. Yeah.
And so Bob's Burgers has so many great Thanksgiving Day episodes as well.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, there's tons of Thanksgiving content. This is, I think, paramount in my mind. So why don't we get into it? Last Waltz. Where do we want to start from the beginning? Do we just want to kind of go through the movie, or do you have talking points? Where do you want to tackle this?
No talking points, but I guess we can sort of think from the beginning. I mean, we could do with Winterland itself, which is such a fascinating place where they chose to do it. I mean, you know, again, like what you said, these guys are really, they're sort of, you know, nomadic. Like they're not from one particular place. You know, they're Canadian American. They have roots in the South. They have roots in upstate New York, but they picked San Francisco to do the show. And I mean, Winterland Ballroom is such a fascinating place in and of itself. I mean, it was an ice skating rink for 50 years or something like that, and was like a family entertainment venue. And then it became a Bill Graham concert venue, but it was really a Bill Graham venue for like 8 years. But like everybody in the world played there during those 8 years. And it's just, you know, I mean, it's like you can find everybody, like everybody did a good Winterland show, and they're just great. And I mean, I guess this was November of 76. So it closed down. They closed down the end of 78. And the Dead did the last show there, which was, you know, the New Year's Eve 78 into 79. I think they played for like 8 hours with the Blues Brothers and New Riders of the Purple Sage and a bunch of people who had played there. But Springsteen has some incredible shows from that same month. Yeah. I think Bill Graham did a thing where it was like that last month, December 78, he booked an act for every day in December of 78. In the December 15th and 16th Springsteen shows are just absolutely incredible. So it's a fun place. And I mean, it's weird to me, like sort of flipping it into the movie / concert, like they imported chandeliers that were, I guess, used in the movie Gone with the Wind. Mm-hmm. And they have this whole sort of backdrop of it. And it's like one of the criticisms I kind of have of the movie is that you don't see the crowd very much. And it doesn't sort of feel like a concert venue. It feels kind of like, I don't know, sterile in a way. As opposed to like the Grateful Dead played there in 74 before their hiatus, and that's like all the, interactive with the crowd, and it kind of feels like a different venue. So I don't know. It's an interesting choice by Scorsese. It makes the band sort of stand apart as opposed to be there with the crowd. And I guess they served them all Thanksgiving dinner, right? It was like they all got there like 5 o'clock. They had Thanksgiving dinner. They were all, had everybody having a good time before the show.
Well, yeah, they had Thanksgiving dinner and they did dancing. There was actual waltzing happening before the show. So there was like a section of time where they were actually able to dance before the entertainment started. And I think they did a jam session. They did the main concert. They did more jam sessions at the end of the night. And I think that's one of the things about the movie that I wish was a little bit more, people just don't understand that this was an entire night and there's no context of this is Thanksgiving. This is a legendary place, as you said, Winterland, being around for so long and being really in the heart of San Francisco rock music in the late 60s and early 70s. There is none of that context in the movie. It's just the band, they play music. This is the end of their run. There's a few asides with the guys and they talk about sort of random things. And I'm sure I'll get into it, but this basically is Robbie Robertson's entire narrative. Like this whole movie is Robbie Robertson's narrative. So that kind of skews it in such a way, but you don't get the context that this is Thanksgiving and it's fun and it's dinner and it's cool. And it's almost like the end of the classic rock era, right? Like you think about the 1960s and the early 70s and we've talked about this in a podcast, critics and people who are into music and talk about music always talking about this era of music as sort of the great period of rock and roll. This is, if you're looking at it through that lens, the end of that great period. And the band are sort of symbolic of the crashing down of great rock and roll in the mid to late 70s. And then after the Last Waltz happens, there's punk, there's disco, there's all these different styles that become vogue in music. So I wish that there was more of that context here. Instead, it just feels like it's a band that was really good and here's their last performance and then it's over. And that to me feels a little bit hollow.
I mean, my thing about it is kind of like, I don't know, I really like the band and they fit into this whole sort of narrative, but it's not like they were bigger than, so it's, it's all about Robbie Robertson kind of being a prima donna to me. It's what the movie is like, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, there's even like the whole opening scene where he like makes Scorsese sort of let him reread lines, but then Scorsese leaves in both, which is like
all that stuff.
It's great. I mean, Scorsese, I think to me, like just sort of knows he's like that. The most interesting thing is kind of what something Robbie Robertson is, and he just sort of lets him show his ass kind of in a way, which is why it's sort of why it's entertaining, sort of the in between song scenes. But it's weird because it's such a that's such a small part of the movie. I mean, the actual concert itself is such a big part of the movie as opposed to those, in between scenes. And I don't know. It's like there's a lot of weird choices to be made by Scorsese in the movie, but it like I said, in the long run it works because there's so much really good music there that it kind of doesn't matter what all the other stuff is.
Yeah, I mean the opening scene itself kind of. I wonder if Scorsese like got all this. I mean So the context behind Scorsese was he and Robbie Robertson were really palling around at this time. And Robbie was trying to get into movies, trying to get into Hollywood, trying to do more stuff outside of the band. And Scorsese and him were really buddying up. And this was a period of high level drug use. And Scorsese had admitted to doing a lot of drugs at this time. And we'll talk about drugs, I'm sure, because it plays a big part in this movie. But the opening shot, I think Scorsese almost like got all this footage and thought, well, this is a story of Robbie Robertson trying to be a prima donna, but also this band is ending and they all don't want to end. And it feels like everybody's trying to get their own here. So the opening shot is a pool table. Richie Manuel's at the pool table. Is it Richie or is it Rick Danko? I forget which one
it's Danko.
It's
Danko does the thing about
Danko's it. Yeah. And he's playing and what's the game? Cutthroat. And he hits the balls and the game starts and that's it, right? Like that's Scorsese kind of telling us these guys hate each other now. Like, or maybe not all of them hate each other, but there are little this guy doesn't like this guy doesn't like this guy kind of thing. And this is what you're going to see over the course of the night is if you read this movie close enough, you'll see that there's a guy who's trying to lead the narrative. There's a guy who doesn't want this to end. And there are a couple guys who are kind of like hanging on a little bit, and some of them are a little bit off. And so that's, there's a dog barking, by the way. And so Scorsese's really telling that story, and that opening scene of the pool table and the cutthroat, I think, is perfect for that. I just wish there was a little bit more. It feels really subtle. It feels so subtle that you have to really know this band if you're going to get those connections.
Yeah, although it's funny, there's I guess, I don't know if you watched last spring during the beginning of the lockdown of COVID, The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan one.
Yeah.
And to me, I kind of feel like Scorsese and the director of The Last Dance, I think that The Last Dance was a direct homage to The Last Waltz, and that they both realized they had these really interesting subjects, but that the best way of showing people how sort of creepy and odd their subjects was not by having other people talk about that. It was by letting them talk.
Yeah.
So Scorsese just lets Robbie Robertson talk, and in the last dance, it's basically like you let Michael Jordan sort of talk, and if you're watching that, you realize kind of how creepy he is and like how obsessed he was. And I mean, it's a different thing. It's like Michael Jordan was so obsessed with winning that he has no personal relationships whatsoever, and Robbie Robertson sort of weirdly is so obsessed with being like, it's not even being famous. It's like sort of
he's
being
the rock
an artist,
star,
right? Yeah. But it's like he wants to be sort of so artistic, right?
Yeah.
And that's like he wants to get every word right, and he sort of rehearses it. And that's like why those beginning scenes where he like wants to say these things more than once are so.
And
because it's not rock star in that traditional way where it's like off the cuff. It's like he wants to. It's so rehearsed, and it's so.
He's at a point in his career when he wants to be, like I said, Hollywood. He wants to be Scorsese's best friend. He wants to really get in with all these crowds. And so he's trying to sort of politically maneuver where he's going in his life while he's doing this documentary. He knows it'll be good for him for his Q score, but he also knows that he can't slip up as he's talking. So he's trying to like the point. I mean, it's the first scene when he's with Martin in the room there. He catches the fly in the air. Like that to me is like so like bravado. I'm the man kind of thing. And it just, you could get like the entire movie is about that. And you see Robbie, emerging with sweat all over his face during a really crucial point of the song that he has nothing to do with. Right. Like it's all these moments where it's a big moment for Levi, or it's a big moment for Richie, and he's like taking credit for it. You could really tell as it goes on, like, oh, this guy's just such a piece of work, and you want him to, he's the enemy. He's the villain. And I don't know if everybody read it that way, but that's how at least I read it. And I think you read it the same way. Yeah.
But he also has probably the coolest part of anyone in the movie when Clapton is playing the guitar solo and his string breaks, and he just goes like Rob, and Robbie Robinson takes like half a beat and then picks up the guitar solo right where Clapton was and like just nails it. I mean,
that's great. That's great.
And like that's the thing. It's like he's a great guitar player and he's not a front man. And I mean, that to me is sort of the most interesting thing about this to me is like the band are not one of those, upper echelon top tier bands that like, when people start to name the greatest bands of all time, but like they're close to that, and they're probably the tier below that, but they're the ones who get this huge farewell concert, and Robbie Robertson clearly thinks that they're like, he's sort of part of that. But one of the really interesting things to watch it, they're a band without a front man, and that's what kind of makes them sort of, I mean, obviously they got their real start as Bob Dylan's backup band, but Levon Helm is probably the closest to a front man that they have, but like they don't have a real like, they don't have a Robert Plant. They don't have a Roger Daltrey. They don't have a Mick Jagger. And it sort of makes that sort of power struggle interesting. And it's like when Robbie Robertson grabs that guitar solo, it's sort of the closest that they have. And, Helm is probably the best, like I said, the singer, and he sort of is that character maybe, but he's also a drummer. So he's like literally not in front, he's behind all those guys, and it sort of gives the whole band an interesting dynamic and makes it really interesting when people like Van Morrison get involved and they do add a front man for a song or two.
Yeah, well, we're talking about the guest now, and I guess that's a good segue into the guest portion, because in the movie you have "Don't Do It" as the theme that kind of opens it up, and they're playing "Don't Do It," which is, one of these songs that sort of kind of defines their whole legacy. And then you get "Up on Cripple Creek," the beginning of the concert, the "Good Evening," which I think is just so cool.
Of course, the great Bill Graham, who
Bill
has to
Graham,
introduce
yes.
everybody. Who's it's funny, is like being a dead person. Like, you can, whenever there's anything that's an introduction, it's like there are the Bill Graham introductions, and there are all of the other ones. And Bill Graham could be, sometimes he would go on for 4 or 5 minutes, and then other times he would do what he does here, which is just come out and say, "Good evening."
Yeah, right.
And then that's it. He's
Because
the best.
the music speaks for itself, so that's
Right.
it, right? Then they do "Shape I'm In," which is great performance of "Shape I'm In." By the way, that whole album, Stage Fright, maybe we'll get back to it in a little bit, but that's such a great album, maybe my favorite band album. Then they do "Who Do You Love" with Ronnie Hawkins. What is do you have a take on Ronnie Hawkins? Because I feel like this guy, like, maybe he was big stuff in Canada back in the day, but I don't get the guy. He just seems like one of these gregarious guys who knows his thing, and like he had a whole act that was really cool 7 years before this, or 10 years before this, but now he's just kind of an old washed up kind of thing. But do you have any thoughts on Ronnie Hawkins?
Well, I don't know. I always think there's this sort of this mantra of like, who's the best bar band in the world or whatever. And right now it's probably like the Hold Steady. And I kind of feel like, Ronnie Hawkins was like the best bar band frontman at the time, which is like a different skill than, writing songs and doing things. And I do feel like he comes out, even that he just delivers there for what he's trying to do for that one song. And it's like, he knows when to call out Robbie Robertson. I'm largely with you. It's like, there's nothing that you're going to listen to him doing and you're going to be like, oh, that's going down in history. But if you're there in the room, it's probably really cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, he does know how to sort of ringlead the band, and there's definitely a chemistry between him and them that's really fun. And you're right, like when he gets Robbie together, and they have a definite chemistry. So that's good. That leads into, so we get that, and then in the movie it kind of tails off. We go back into regular band stuff. But one of the best performances of the night in "It Makes No Difference," which is a Rick Danko spotlight.
Yeah, it's Danko.
Yeah, I mean, just such a great song.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most interesting things to me kind of about this is that it almost, like there's sort of this, like elegiac aspect to it, as though like what you were saying about it's like the end of an era. But all of the guests, for the most part, are still alive, and many of them are still performing. I mean, we've talked about Clapton being a jackass still, and we haven't talked as much about Van Morrison still being a jackass, but we mentioned him a couple times. But it's like Joni Mitchell is still around, Neil Diamond's still around, I mean, Ringo is still around, Ronnie Wood is still around. It's like so many of the people who are like the big guests are still actually like out there making music. I mean, Neil Young is still out there making music, but like the band themselves are such this group of tragic characters. I mean, between like Danko, Levon Helm, and I mean, Levon Helm is a little bit different, but like Danko, like in Rich Emanuel, like there's these guys who like, they're the ones who died way too young and aren't around anymore. So it's like when you look back and watch this, like they're the ones who are sad. And Danko is to me the one that always is the tragic figure of this, because there is sort of this what if moment to him. I mean, Scorsese interviews him where he plays his own, the song that's going to be on his solo album. And like clearly he's one who depends on the band. And like, he's not going to have a solo career. I mean, he's kind of like this awkward guy in and of himself. But when he is the front man for those, songs here and there, he nails it. And I mean, it makes no difference. It's like an absolute great Danko moment, as is when he's like, sort of in the lead on The Wait, which is, the weirdest part of the movie to me is the Wait that's in the movie, but still, he's great.
Yeah, Danko's awesome. I mean, he such an angelic voice and brings a level of pathos to a song that few singers can do in the rock era. Most bands don't employ a guy who has that kind of a tone and let him sort of take the lead on a lot of songs. And he's able to do that really well. He actually died in 99, I think he died. And you're right. Like he kind of was
before that, but it was way too young.
It was way too young. And he was definitely a guy who, as you said, relied on the band and being part of that group to get by because he was with the band and doing things either with the band or as sort of like a side project of the bands, during his entire life. Richie Manuel, of course, another one, tragic story. He died in 86. And the story of him is, they were on tour and he was in a hotel room and drank just a crap ton of Grand Marnier and hung himself, which, just terrible. But he had a lot of problems. And here in this moment in 76, apparently he was going through a lot this time, doing a lot of drugs, drinking heavily. And, I guess you could tell that a little bit in the movie, but he still has a gorgeous voice and can really belt. And you don't sense that he's that far gone at this point. But you're right. These guys had, amazing gifts, and the vocals are just, kind of paramount to what they were. And it's a shame that, a song like this, it makes no difference, is well known in the band catalog, but I don't think is well known overall as a great song. And I think, it's good to hear, it's good to kind of bring that song up once in a while because it is such a great performance. So then we get into, the real deep, great cameos, the guest appearances. And man, you get this kind of weird prayer that happens. One of these gurus comes out. Do you know who this guy is?
I forget who he is, but he reads from the Canterbury Tales, right?
That's right.
I think it's the Canterbury Tales. Right?
It's Canterbury Tales. Yeah. Yep.
It's the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, which I think I had to memorize in high school.
Yeah,
I don't remember it anymore, but
it's been so long since I've read the Canterbury Tales. So then you get Such a Night with Dr. John, which is one of the best performances of the night. He just comes out and kind of owns it. I love the suit he's got going on with the sequins and his jacket. That just kills me.
Yeah, I mean, you can never go wrong with Dr. John. I mean, he nails it too. I mean,
and then you get Neil Young, Helpless, and of course, a lot of things to say about Neil Young's performance.
Doesn't Joni Mitchell come out with Neil Young? But
she's in the backstage. She's sort of behind the curtain, and you get her silhouette. And for those who might be untrained, you're like, "Ooh, someone's back here and singing a vocal." But now that if you have seen Joni Mitchell enough and you see her behind in the silhouette, you're like, "Oh, that's Joni Mitchell. She's definitely singing back there." But it's great. I mean, it's great. And Neil, of course, has famously a rock of crack in his nose while he's performing the song. And in post-production, Martin Scorsese basically created a black booger to put over his nose to just follow him as he's going so that they could cover up the crack rock during the entire time. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole story is hysterical, and I mean, it's so funny to sort of like whitewash that era, like whitewash that out of the show. But whatever, I guess I can imagine. It's like if it's so, obtrusive that it distracts people, whatever. But it's funny.
Where do you put Helpless as far as performances on this record?
I mean, I don't know. I would say I like some of the other like studio versions and things better. Yeah, that's not one that jumps off to me. It's just that's one of those tracks that live just doesn't, blow you away. It's fine and it's good. And Neil Young's fine. I mean, he's good when he shows up, but it's not one I would ever skip past necessarily. But it's also not one that blows me away.
It does give me one of the better Robbie Robertson moments of the movie when he comes out. And he goes over to Robbie and says, "Thank you for letting me do this," or something like that. And Robbie's like, are you kidding? Like, are you kidding? Like, it's a great little moment. It's like, you're Neil Young, like, are you kidding? Like you're playing. This is amazing. So that's cool. Then we get into Stage Fright, which is again, talk about Stage Fright, the album. Do you love this album?
Oh yeah. No, it's good. And I love this song on this. This is one that like I frequently forget about it in between, like in years where I haven't watched it. And then it always is like, again, it's one I never skip because it's a great sounding song.
Yeah. And it's Danko again, kind of that different tone, contributing that sense of paranoia to a song that, it's so much depth. Like if Levon were to do Stage Fright, it would be an entirely different song, but Danko doing it really adds the right kind of, the right kind of texture to it. I love the album. I just want to mention the album real quick. Todd Rundgren produced it. And famously, like every Todd Rundgren production ever, he got the band really upset at him and it was a contentious recording process, but nonetheless came out pretty well. And that album has some really great sort of third tier band songs, kind of hidden jewels. Just Another Whistle Stop, I love that one. Strawberry Wine is great, which is the opening track. And A La Glory, which Levon wrote about his daughter, Amy Helm, when she was born. All great stuff. Really a cool sort of underrated album that if you listen to on a Sunday afternoon, you're going to really enjoy it. It's one of those kinds of albums that just, it's got a good mood to it. It's a little more downtrodden, a little more dark, and it feels good. So then we got The Wait. So you said this is a weird part of the movie for you.
Well, The Wait and Evangeline are the ones that were recorded on a soundstage, not at the concert.
Yes.
And there's no explanation of that when you're watching the movie. And they did play The Wait at the concert, but the one that shows up in the movie, the version of The Wait that shows up in the album is the one that was in the concert, but the one that in the original album, they've now released a bunch of, sort of different versions. But the movie, they throw in The Wait, and then later they'll throw in Evangeline, were recorded well afterwards. And it's got the staple singers. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And standalone, it's probably the song from this that I've listened to the most. But it's weird because it kind of seems almost cold because it doesn't have an audience there.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, and it's so sort of stoic. It's a weird choice to me by Scorsese to just sort of cut to these studio versions. Again, like they do this, and then they'll do it later with Evangeline. Without any kind of explanation or without anything. And it's like, in this where they're performing, it looks like something out of like one of the Big Lebowski dream sequences where there's like these weird sort of, like shapes in the background and things like that. It just doesn't seem normal as opposed to like the Winterland stage.
Mavis just appears out of a cake or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wearing lingerie. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a really awkward placement. I wish that there was context for the song. Like, The Wait is the band's most famous song. It's a song that they will be known for forever, and it is a Hall of Songs inductee. Thank you. But you don't get a sense when that comes on that this means any more than any other song that you've heard.
Right.
I would love a little bit of that, because the whole problem that I have with the movie generally is that Scorsese doesn't let us know why this is an important concert. Why all these people coming out for the band is a big deal. What makes this group really important? And it's because they were able to sum up the history of music in America over the course of their 16 years of performing and being together. And they did it in such a way that it was all about bars, and then it was all about recording, and it was all about being sort of the sidemen for other guys. And then it became, they were big celebrities. You don't get that at all. And The Wait is the song that sort of that kind of connects it all together, because it's the Americana song. It's about traveling. It's about being on the road a lot, but it's also about, it's their big hit, and all that stuff. It's not there. And so I just wish that Scorsese was able to somehow get us to that point where this, even if it is in the soundstage and it's that performance, let us know why this is important. Let us know why the staple singers being part of this is a big deal.
Yeah, but even that, like in the concert, it was the last song that they played before Dylan came out.
Yeah.
And then Dylan wrapped up with them, and then they came back and did the encore. But like they throw it in the middle here. They throw the soundstage version in the middle here, which to me, again, it's such a great version. But because it just sort of stands out in the context of these live versions, right? It's like, it's not better or worse. It probably is better, but it stands out kind of like a sore thumb in the context of these live versions where you have, mistakes that are being made, but all the fun stuff that happens with live music. And that doesn't have any of it because it was on the soundstage and they were able to rehearse it and they were able to get it just, perfect. And again, it's like, you could have thrown this in during the credits. You could have done a lot of things. But there's no context given to it, which is just sort of an odd choice to me.
Also, are the staple singers, I guess staple singers and Emmylou Harris, are they the only ones who are performing as guest artists on band songs? Because all the other guest artists basically do their own things.
Yeah, I've thought about that, and I think that's right. I guess
I mean, I Shall Be Released is like everybody, but
I mean, but that's a Dylan song, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose that's right. Yeah, I mean, I guess you have I Shall Be Released, you have The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, but does anybody show up in The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down?
No, it's just them. It's just them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I think it is like everybody else comes and does their own songs, except for them, which is interesting. And they're sort of,
because they were big at that point. I mean, I'll
Right.
Take You There was just a couple years before that, and they were still going really strong. So,
well, I
speaking
guess
of that,
what Neil Young and Joni Mitchell appear on the Acadian Driftwood, but that doesn't make the movie though.
Doesn't make the movie. Yeah.
But they bring out the Canadians to sing that one, of course.
Well, you talked about The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. That's next in the order, which I think is either the first or second best performance of the night. And Leave On Here, the fact that thankfully they keep it on him for a good while. Robbie does still get his shots in this one. And, Robbie does very little with this song other than he wrote it, which is great. Totally worth it. But this is Leave On, really showing the kind of emotion that he brings to the vocal through this one. It's just a transcendent performance.
Yeah, this is like, this is one of the songs that just sort of stands out, among all the other. I mean, it's just a great performance of a great song. And I love it. It's one of the band's best songs, and it's a great performance.
Yeah. I mean, but the shot of Robbie coming up, sort of surfacing from underneath, like he had just been through like either a sexual thing or he was in a hot shower or something, and he's just baked in sweat, and he's got his mouth open like, toward the end of the song. That's one of those moments where I cringe so hard because I just can't do it. I can't do it with him. But nevertheless, how do you feel about Neil Diamond?
This is one that's warmed up to me. And the more times I've watched it, I actually think his performance is pretty fine. It does stand out a little bit. It doesn't sound like a lot of the other stuff that they're doing, but I guess by all accounts, like Robbie Robertson really and Neil Diamond were good buddies, and everybody else couldn't stand them or something like that. But but whatever. I mean, he shows up, he's game, he sings one of his own songs. It doesn't, it's not terrible. It's fine. I like Neil Diamond a lot, but myself, like he's like a little bit out of place maybe here in this show.
Well, yeah, he's got the big sunglasses on and the zoot suit kind of thing, or the 70s sort of leisure suit thing going on. And so the story is that his latest album in 76 is called Beautiful Noise, which Robbie Robertson produces. So Robbie and him are in cahoots, obviously. Cahoots being another band album, by the way. And Dry Your Eyes, which Neil performs, is the last song on Beautiful Noise. And so this is the big show-stopping song on the album. And so he presents it. It's got this big show-stopping arrangement, all the drum rolls and just the big sort of New York kind of feel to it. And Neil is, giving it the gusto that he's supposed to give it. And there's a story, whether it was actually, I don't know if it was ever confirmed as true or not, but it's a fun story nonetheless, where Neil performs Dry Your Eyes, leaves, goes backstage, and Bob Dylan is there standing around, and he goes something like, try to top that. And Bob Dylan makes a joke. He makes a crack. And I forget, what does he say? Like, do you remember that? Do you know this story?
I've heard the story before, but I forget exactly his retort, but it is kind of like very Dylan-ish.
Yeah, it's like, what I have to sneeze or something, or like something like that, right. Something pithy. But yeah, Neil definitely feels out of place here. There's a sense. I mean, I guess it makes sense that you're talking about, if we're talking about music from the 60s and 70s and the band, how they sort of span that entire era, then you have to have some sort of a brill building, New York City, Tin Pan Alley, that kind of a presence has to be there. And Robbie does talk about the Tin Pan Alley before that. So, good job by Robbie to kind of find a way to weave Neil Diamond into the narrative so that he can have his performance or whatever. But yeah, it's ultimately, I'm with you. Like, it doesn't kill the whole movie. It's just a ridiculous thing to see Neil Diamond in his giant sunglasses trying to boast his way through a song.
Well, there's a lot of that ham-fisted narrative, though. I mean, going to the next song where like it's like they talk about it like all the women in the world, and then immediately cut to Joni Mitchell singing Coyote, which is like,
God. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's a little too much Scorsese, but
yeah,
but it is. And then they go to the blues part of the show. It's like, they have these sort of weird phases of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, Coyote's great. Joni Mitchell doing that. One of my favorite performances of the show. It does seem a little out of place as well, just because it's a poetic narrative that just kind of lingers on for a bit, and it's Joni getting into her jazz period in the late 70s, and so it doesn't really quite fit with what's going on behind her.
Right.
But she still commands the stage, and it's Joni Mitchell. So yes, like, let's pay attention. It's great. But you're right. The blues stuff comes next. So you get Mystery Train, Manish Boy, Further On Up the Road. And so you have Paul Butterfield. Muddy Waters comes in for Manish Boy, which is a great performance and so much fun to see him out there. And then Eric Clapton, our friend and yours, for Further On Up the Road. This all to me just feels like a big sort of chunk of time that either I will listen to at once or I will get rid of completely. I like Manish Boy a lot, but I really don't care for anything else here. It's just kind of filler.
Yeah, I as much as I can't stand Clapton, I do like the Further Up on the Road when he shows up. It's like I feel like that's a pretty cool part of it, but the same way, it's like if I skipped over that for whatever reason, I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, we get the tour of Shangri-La as well, as Rick Danko takes
Scorsese
that's right. through that whole the old bordello. And then we get, I guess,
then we jump back to the soundstage, right?
Well, the soundstage comes in, but I wanted to mention, do we get like a bit of Rick Danko's solo album there?
Yes, that's where he plays the next song that he's going to come. Yeah, and it's like clearly he's sort of like pleading for a record company to pick him up because, I mean, it's a weird sort of scene where Scorsese pretty much tees him up to play something that's going to come from his next solo album, which I don't think he had actually been signed for at the time, but.
Well, I mean, and that's, I guess, leading, if you go back to the Cutthroat, the opening scene there,
right,
where Rick Danko is taking Martin Scorsese on a little tour. Here's my solo stuff. Please listen to it. Please, please, please. Richie Manuel is almost begging for them to keep touring because he wants women and whiskey, and he wants to just keep playing and be crazy like that. It just seems like Richie's entire narrative is that. Garth is like, I don't give a crap, whatever. Like, I'm Garth. I'll make my way. And Levon is kind of like angling. We'll get into Levon a little bit later with the Midnight Rainbow stuff, but he's angling to sort of set up his next sort of phase. And then Robbie's, of course, being Robbie. So, yeah, I mean, everybody's kind of trying to figure out, like, I need to get up, I need to get my voice loud here so I can sort of make my way into my next phase, right? Like, that's kind of what's going on here. Evangeline, soundstage, as you said, Emmylou Harris. She looks just so dreamlike. She doesn't look like she belongs here. She looks like,
that one's to me straight out of the Lebowski dream sequence because it's like it all looks so fake, but it sounds great and it's a good song.
And Levon plays mandolin, which
I mean, is there a drummer on that one?
Richie's playing right, drums. Yeah,
that's right.
Which is so cool that like you get that different flavor, which again, context. I would love to know early in the film that these guys are great instrumentalists, but they also play multiple instruments. Richie's very talented. Garth is super talented. And Robbie kind of talks about how they found Garth, and that's kind of cool. But you don't get more of that. You don't get more of Garth just being like a musical wizard. He has that 20 seconds of chest fever that he plays. But yeah, I mean, you don't get the idea that the band are that great. And so, of course, Chest Fever's next, actually, after Evangeline. You get Garth playing quite a bit. But that's, 20 seconds of Garth, and then you kind of move on. Garth, to me, feels like he's a side musician who plays with the band and not an integral part of the band.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, even though he's so talented and so great, I mean, it's like he definitely gets shunned.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the movie, but I mean, he definitely gets shunned.
That brings us to my favorite part of the whole movie, which is Ophelia and then Caravan. Ophelia, of course, a great late period band song that has a New Orleans sound to it. On the actual album, And in the concert, it kind of fits alongside the sort of New Orleans stuff that
Yeah,
they
it was much
do.
earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And then they drop it in late here because it's so good, probably. But
Yeah. But again, Robbie's all over this song, which again, it's not really his place. This is a real Levon jam and he's singing and all that. Nevertheless, great. But you also get that Levon Helm talking about the Walcott's Rabbit Foot Minstrels, which is fantastic. Of course, he would have a song on stage fright called W.S. Walcott's Medicine Show, which is a cool little song. And again, sets up the whole Midnight Ramble thing. Have you ever been to Woodstock? Have you ever been to that area or done any of those?
I've been up to the area. I've never actually been to Woodstock, but I've been up and around there.
Do you have a regret of not going to the Ramble?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been fun. I'd like,
Yeah.
I mean, again, I know the music, and that would have been fun, but I guess it just wasn't on my radar.
Okay. They were really cool.
Yeah.
I know that the Levon Helm band still performs.
They still perform,
yeah. And it's Amy Helm, and it's a lot of the guys who were part of the sort of the third phase of the band. So Jim Weeder and stuff like that.
Yeah.
From the 90s. They
Well,
still play.
there's a couple guys who are sort of from the jam band world who are sort of
Yes.
picked up that mantra and still play up there, like Marco Benevento,
Yeah.
Joe Russo, who leads up Joe Russo's Almost Dead, and those guys do a lot of shows up there, which is why I'm still sort of in tune with it. Is like those guys are, especially Marco. Like Marco is still very much part of that scene.
Yeah. So if you're ever in Woodstock and the Levon Helm band is playing at the Ramble or anything like that on a Saturday night, try to do it. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Bring your own food. It's a potluck. So bring some macaroni salad. It's a good time. Caravan. So this is the whole reason I love this movie. Van Morrison. First off, how do you feel about Van Morrison and his outfit?
Well, I mean, I know Van Morrison in recent years has given reason to whatever, but still, but this is incredible. I mean, his performance here is amazing. I mean, it's like he decides that he's going to wear this purple sort of sequin jumpsuit, I guess, that he shows up in. I mean, and then he nails the song, and then he goes into this sort of vocal jam, and the band has no idea where he's going with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best part, is like they are trying to keep up with him as he sort of goes into sort of vocal improvisation. And then he just decides he's done. So he just drops the mic and walks off the stage, and they're all just sort of left, sort of holding it. And they're like, all right, I guess we're done now. And then Robbie Robertson, again, to his credit, just comes in and goes like, Van the man, everyone. Right. But like his mic, he does the karate kicks, drops the mic and walks off stage. It's great. I mean, it's so much fun. It's like this sort of epic thing that it's like, what I like about it is he's sort of shown them up in this way, right? But mostly in a good natured way, but in this way, again, it's the weirdest thing about the band again is that they don't have a front man. So when they have a front man who does that, they don't necessarily know how to react to it. And it doesn't, it doesn't like, it's like if that was Roger Daltrey, he'd come back on and come into the next song. But in that way, they don't know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, so Caravan is on Moondance, which is Van Morrison's 1970 album. Great album. I think it's 70.
I think that's right.
Yeah. The title track is fantastic. Into the Mystic is on that. Really good stuff. But he definitely has fun with this in a fact that he's improvising a lot. And it's the part toward the end when he goes, switch on your electric light. And, Levon does that kind of like quarter step on the drums where you hear, it's almost like a light switch going off, like that kind of thing. And then Van goes, we can get down to what's really wrong, really wrong, really wrong, really wrong, really wrong. He's drunk and he's having a good time. And it's great. It's just the best. And I like watching the other guys in the band sort of react to all this. Because when I was watching Dry Your Eyes and Neil Diamond performing, I look back and you could see for a lot of the shots, Rick Danko sort of like, all right, who cares? Like, I'm playing bass. This is whatever. Like, it's Neil Diamond. I'm just playing the bass line. And when I watch Caravan, I see Levon, like, like having like throwing a fit with himself, like having so much fun playing the drums. Like he's smiling, he's having a good time because this is the front man that, as you said, like the band doesn't have. And this is the kind of musical front man that Levon loves to see in action because it means everybody's having a good time and partying and having fun. And so Van just brings that to the group. And to me, this is the number one performance of the show. Like it's this and Old Dixie are kind of right there, but this kind of overtakes it all. And it's just such a great performance. Do you have a favorite performance? Do you have a ranking of the performances?
I love this one. I mean, that's up there. The one we sort of, what's interesting, we'll talk about it maybe in a minute, is I do love the Don't Do It, which they kick off the show with, but it was actually the encore of the show and was played at like 2:40 in the morning. And I love the choice. Like, again, I've criticized a lot of Scorsese's choices, but I kind of love the fact that he leads off with the encore, because it kind of gives it this like sort of cyclical feel, right? Where it's like, it's always sort of going on and on by leading off with that. But it also, it's almost kind of like that, you know, the movies or like the record scratch thing, like how did we get here type thing, right? Where it's like by leading, but I love that performance too. It's so short. It's not crazy, but I just love that sort of, you know, 2:45 in the morning coming up and doing a Marvin Gaye cover. It's just a great, great thing.
Yeah. That's definitely up there. I would say Caravan, Old Dixie, and then, you know, man, I love Such a Night a lot. There's a couple of songs on.
Yeah,
I
love the Dr. John. I mean, we're about ready to get into the Dylan, and the one that I always think is kind of overrated is the I Shall Be Released, because when there's that many people on stage, you can't hear anything. Right? Yeah, it's like, yeah. And the Dead did that a lot. The Dead would play in like Fillmore East, and they'd bring out like, you know, people from the Allman Brothers Band and Fleetwood Mac, and they do these jams. And sometimes the jams are kind of interesting, but like when you can't hear anything, it's just a bunch of noise in a way. And like the I Shall Be Released, it kind of sounds like, you know, a junior high school choir, right? Where it's like everybody's there singing, but you can't hear anybody separate from anybody else. And then, but of course, you do get the immaculately dressed Ronnie Wood just sort of showing up.
Oh my God.
Doesn't play anything else and then shows up in a white suit.
He's like Sergeant Pepper out there. Yeah. It's amazing. So Dylan comes out in the concert and they do, so he starts with what? Baby Let Me Follow You Down, and then Forever Young, and then a reprise of Baby Let Me Follow You Down. Or there's another song in there too. What's the song that they do? It's a sort of mid-tempo song. I forget what it's called.
In the movie or in the show, he does the Baby Let Me Follow You Down. He does Hazel, and then he does the I Don't Believe You.
I Don't Believe You. Yeah,
right. And then Forever Young, and Forever Young is the first one that shows up in the movie, I think.
Yes.
That's and then the Baby Let Me Follow You Down reprise. That one shows up in the movie. And then I Shall Be Released, that where they introduce Ronnie Wood and Ringo Starr, who've just been hanging out for what? Like the dinner started at 5:00. This is probably at 2 a.m., 1:30 a.m.
They got there at 11 o'clock or maybe midnight or something. Yeah.
But it's like Ronnie Wood and Ringo have been like, whatever, out in the town in San Francisco. And then again, Ronnie Wood just shows up immaculately dressed. Ringo doesn't look too bad either, but still. Yeah. Like these guys just roll in and it's like, oh yes, our last two friends. We have two guys from the two most famous bands in the world. Let's just sort of stroll them out there.
And they're probably like really coked up right now. And they're just, they're going to sit there. I'm so of the Dylan stuff. I like Forever Young quite a bit. I think it's a good performance. That was a more recent song for him. I think that's 74, maybe 75.
Yeah, I think that's Planet Waves. And that's the best. That's the one that has the most sort of like urgency to the performance. I mean, yeah. The rest of again, like the whole story about Dylan is so like, you know, I mean, the band obviously was like his band for such a long time. And I guess it's like what they asked him to show up and he said he'll be there. Yep. And then he said, okay, I'm only gonna be there, but you can't film me. Yep. And then he said, well, I'll be there, but you can film me, but only for a certain number of songs. So they had to like sort of trim it down. And it's like this sort of odd, you know, again, prima donna type performance where he's there, but he's only there kind of for pieces of it and things like that. And it sort of feels like, again, like, you know, that Robbie Robertson wanted it to be this almost like third act where it was like, we've got our old stuff, then we sort of have this like blues and these other like and then we want to have the Dylan piece, right?
Yeah.
And Dylan kind of was like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's either give me context for Dylan. Give me like here's why the band and Dylan together is a big deal. Here's the history between them, so we get a sense that they were his band and all that stuff. Because I would imagine that there are a lot of people who watched the movie in '78 who didn't know that Dylan and the band were together at some point. So I either want that context or take Dylan out altogether.
Right.
Don't even do the Dylan stuff, and end the movie on the weight and do that. Right. So yeah, I don't know. But nevertheless, yeah, it is like it does have this feel of almost like a coda, with all these songs. And I Shall Be Released being this sort of like drunken, the credits are about to roll kind of thing. And Neil Young looks so effed up during this performance. And everybody's kind of during the Richie Manuel vocal, they're turned their heads and looking at Richie Manuel as he's singing, and nobody can see Richie Manuel. And he's really the reason why this song is so, amazing as it is, because he brings that great vocal to the band's recording. It's just all too much. And it's the moment where I feel like, yeah, if you just distilled this whole movie to maybe 90 minutes and you took out the Dylan stuff and you just kind of focused on what the band does best, you would have a great movie. But it's still a great movie, but it's just a little bit too much at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. But that's kind of the point of the movie, right? I mean, it's Thanksgiving. Right, yeah. It's about excess. It's about a bunch of people who are like, doing a little bit too much, and in many ways, too much in the music way, too much in the drug way, too much, like all of it. It's just much, and that's what makes it fun. And that's also like what is its weaknesses. And but it's again like the music that's there is so much fun, and if it's in so much if it's in so well with what we've been talking about in this era, there's so many just legends who show up and who are on stage at the same time, and it's great. And like I said, I love Bill Graham. I love the fact this is at Winterland and all that, and it's a fun show to watch. And watching it once a year now, you can mostly just sort of chuckle at it.
Yeah, that's true. Is there a performance that is not on the movie but on the album or what have you that you wish you could see in the movie, or one that you just want to like kind of praise?
Well, I the Weight is the one that kind of baffles me. Like, I love the fact that they have the one with the staple singers, but there's an energy to that because it is sort of the climax of the live show, and the fact that they didn't put that on is just sort of, to me, odd. Ophelia is obviously in the movie, but they drop it down a lot bit, and it's like, again, like, throwing it back to sort of the Dead shows, like that's a classic like first set show that has this energy. And I like, one of my favorite band songs is, I mentioned earlier, is Acadian Driftwood. Mm-hmm. And they bring out Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, and that's a fun song to listen to. And that's weird. Like, that's a one that to me, it's like almost, it's timeless in a way. Like it's a band song, but it kind of sounds like it could have come from like the later 70s or 80s. Like it sort of has that when you listen to the studio version. And that's one that would have been fun maybe to have on the in concert, but I'm okay with them leaving it off. I mean, it's a little bit of a slower burn maybe than some of the other ones. How about you?
They do Rag Mama Rag in the concert, and that would have been nice to hear on the movie, because it's such a high energy song, and it's a Levon spotlight, and it really captures early band in a really great way. And they do 20 Seconds of Chest Fever. I mean, Chest Fever is the album version is really cool, and they don't give that it's just due, I think. But also they introduced Van Morrison with Turalura Lura, which is an Irish song, and that's such a cool little thing, and that's a Richie Manuel moment where he gets to sing quite a bit, and you hear his beautiful tone, and that's lost in the movie. And so I feel like Richie's kind of the big loser in the movie, him and Garth, although Garth kind of, I don't think Garth cares. Yeah. But Richie Manuel is kind of the big loser in the movie, because he is, at least early on, the primary voice of the band. In those first two albums, Richie's really the guy, and he gets completely lost and erased sort of during this entire movie. So to have a couple more of his highlights would have been nice. And Turalura Lura is a good highlight for him. And then Van Morrison kind of barges in at the end and turns it into his song, and then you get in the caravan. That's a great moment. So that would have been nice to see in the movie.
Yeah, they did Georgia on My Mind too in the first set of the the concert, but I don't think that's on any of the released versions. Like, I think you can maybe dig that up if you get into some of like the bootlegs and things like that. But that would have been a fun one maybe to have. I mean, I don't know how good it is, but like I said, I don't think
I
it's
mean,
actually
it's
been.
Twirler. It's the same. It's
Right.
the same melody. Yeah, it's the same thing. So that would have been great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any closing thoughts on this concert, this band, and you know, I can wax poetic about how much it means to me in a romantic way.
Well,
But
again, the funniest thing to me about this is like, and I allude to this, it's like the band are not like in that elite group of, you know, artists to me.
it's not the Beatles or Stones.
It
or
was,
the Who
but it
or
was like
Zeppelin,
Robbie
yeah.
Robertson just grabbed Scorsese, who was his friend, and decided that like, my band is going to break up. This is going to be the biggest thing anyone's ever seen. We have to do this.
Mhm.
And it makes this sort of show to it. And then it has this weird sort of piece to it that it's like part of it is, you know, it's too much. And then part of it is, this is just perfect for the time, you know, and
Mhm.
like it really, and again, to me that it works perfectly for Thanksgiving, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, it is way, way, way too much, but at the same time, it works for what they were trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, Thanksgiving is the day where you indulge in foods that you would never eat most of the year. You know, how often do we eat actual turkey, like roasted turkey? How much do we eat green bean casserole during the course of the year? But we do it on things. I mean, maybe you eat it more than I do. But on Thanksgiving, you know, you eat that one time. And I think, yeah, you're right. Like this one concert, doing all of these guests, having this whole big spectacle, all these jam sessions, all of this. Yeah, why not? You know, why not throw it on the pile and have this be part of the Thanksgiving tradition? That makes sense. It's a cool little, you know, it's a cool little anomaly of our calendar year where we can sort of go back and see this meeting of all these artists who meant a lot in the late 60s and early 70s, and see them sort of come together for this thing that they obviously love, and they believe in the band, they love the band, but you know, kind of also say goodbye to what they were representing. You know, that sort of pure moment of classic rock music where it was all about, you know, the message man and all that shit, whatever, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's right. It's all about it's about excess, and that's why it's fun.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, this has been fun. It's been fun to kind of talk about this. Was there anything else that you want to talk about with the Last Waltz before we close it up for good?
No, I think we got. You know, I had a couple points, but I think we hit them all.
Okay.
It's an odd movie. Like I said,
It is. It is.
I'm a big Scorsese fan, but setting it aside from what we're talking about on the music side of things, some of it really, really works, and some of it I don't think does. But I mean, but again, it's like it's something I'm always going to go back to just because the music's so good.
Yeah, for sure. Do you like this better than Stop Making Sense?
I think I do, only because of some of the weird humor in the middle. But I will say, I think I probably like listening to Stop Making Sense better than this, but they're both really good.
Yeah.
So I think of Stop Making Sense more as like something I'll listen to, more as a concert. This, I think, is more of sort of a show where like the movie does add something to it that it might not otherwise.
Well, nobody is dressed up like Van Morrison during Stop
Exactly,
Making Sense. Yeah. The big suit versus Van Morrison's
You're
V-neck.
right.
You know, how do you do that? Well, great. So we will end that there. So our next episode is 1972. That'll be coming out on December 5th. We will talk about, well, the next episode really is our recap show of the next election, which is December 3rd. Good stuff happening there. We're interested in seeing how that's going. And then December 5th is our 1972 episode. I think we're still trying to figure out what the hell is going to be in that one. We're still whittling down that big list, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Again, just way too much stuff.
Yeah. It's a very interesting episode. I think it's going to be a really interesting listen.
Yeah, we're getting in these weird transitional years of
yeah. Big transitional year. So that'll be coming up on December 5th. And then so the recap show on December 3rd, December 5th will be 72, and that's where we are. So There's still time to vote. I think I'll get this up before the end of the week. So please vote at hallofsongs.com for the songs that you think should be in the Hall of Songs. 1971, 70, 69, 68, 67, still on the ballot. So go check that out. hallofsongs.com. We should send our thank yous to whom, Chris?
To Stock Music Media for a very cool theme song, and to my buddy Aaron DeLashmutt. You can find his stuff at Piper Down Productions for our logo work, including our little guitar pick plaques when everything gets inducted. There you go. That's tough. It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, it is for sure. I just keep saying GPPs.
There you go.
Yeah. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hall of Song, or on Twitter at Hall of Songs, Instagram Hall of Songs. Email us, hallofsongspod@gmail.com. And we're now on YouTube. Just search for Hall of Songs on YouTube. We're there. So yeah, if you are following us, who knows? Follow us there. That's it. Next up will be our recap show in the 1972, December 3rd, December 5th, all that good stuff. That's it for Hall of Songs. I'm Tim.
I'm Chris.
Prove me wrong.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.